Ethan Cole lived on the far edge of a quiet human colony on the planet Varela 3. The world had soft blue skies with two suns that never rose or set at the same time. Most days were calm and silent except for the hum of energy turbines that powered the living domes. Ethan worked as a repair engineer who fixed air filters and habitat shields for the colonists. He liked the peace of this place and spent evenings alone in his small room, watching the strange alien stars blink through his window. His only neighbor was an alien, woman named Lyra Tishen. She was from the native species called Valari, tall and graceful, with skin that shimmered faint green under the light and eyes that looked silver like moonwater. Her voice was calm, musical, and carried a gentle accent. Ethan had spoken to her only a few times, just small greetings or simple talks about the weather or the constant dust storms that rolled across the desert. One night, while Ethan was returning from work, he saw something unusual through her window. The room glowed softly, not like ordinary light, but like slow waves of color moving across the air. Blue, then purple, then faint gold. It looked almost alive. He paused, wondering if her power grid was failing. When he knocked on her door, she did not answer. He decided not to disturb her and went to his own room, though the image of those colors stayed in his mind. The next morning, when he went to the supply station to pick up spare fusion coils, he met Lyra by chance. She looked different. Her eyes were brighter, her cheeks faintly flushed, and she seemed distracted. When he greeted her, she hesitated a little before answering. "Good morning, Ethan," she said softly. "You should keep your filters clean this week. The winds will carry a strange pollen." He smiled and nodded, thinking she was simply giving friendly advice. But something in her tone felt different, like she was hiding a secret. As she turned away, the air around her seemed to shimmer slightly, leaving behind a faint floral scent that lingered long after she walked off. The colony was small, only 32 people and a handful of Valari settlers allowed under the Human-Valari Cooperation Treaty. Ethan had never had a problem with them. In fact, he admired their calm way of living and their advanced sense of harmony with nature. But over the next few days, he started noticing strange changes in the air systems of their housing block. The temperature rose slightly every night, the filters worked harder, and the recycled air carried a sweet scent, almost like fruit mixed with spice. When he asked the building system for a diagnostic, the AI replied that environmental changes were within Valari comfort range. He frowned, confused, because the system was supposed to balance both species' needs equally. That evening, when he went to ask Lyra about it, she opened the door slowly. Her eyes looked dull, her face pale, and her voice low. "It is fine," she said, almost whispering. "The systems are not broken, it is only the season." Ethan did not understand. He tried to ask what she meant, but she closed the door gently. He stood there for a moment, uncertain, and then went back to his room. Later that night in the outpost canteen, Ethan mentioned it to another Valari scientist named Terran who worked in the research unit. Terran's expression changed immediately when he heard Lyra's name. "You live beside a Valari female?" he asked quietly. "Yes," Ethan said, surprised by the tone. "She seems sick or something." "She said it's her season?" Terran nodded slowly. "The blooming cycle," he explained. "It happens to every Valari female once every 7 years. Their body enters a heightened state. Temperature rises, emotions intensify, and their pheromones affect the environment. It can influence other beings around them if exposure lasts too long." Ethan frowned. "Influence? Like how?" "Empathy waves," Terran said. "Your mind might start feeling what she feels. Some humans report dreams or changes in mood. It is harmless in small contact, but dangerous if she loses control." The word dangerous echoed in Ethan's thoughts all the way home. He told himself it was none of his business. She was his neighbor, not his responsibility. But when he passed by her door, he heard a faint noise, like someone breathing hard or trying not to cry. He hesitated, then knocked once. "Lyra?" No answer. He waited, then the door slid open slightly. The air inside felt warm and thick, carrying that same sweet scent, stronger now. She sat near the window on the floor, holding her head with both hands. Her hair, which usually stayed pale silver green, now glowed softly with golden streaks. "Lyra, you're not well," he said gently. She lifted her head, her silver eyes reflecting the soft light. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "The air reacts to me. It affects humans. Please go." He ignored her warning and stepped closer. "You're overheating." Your body temperature's too high. You could collapse. I called for assistance, she murmured weakly. The medical shuttle will come in 2 days. I just have to endure until then. Ethan knew what 2 days meant on this planet. Storms, power flickers, and long hours of isolation. He could not leave her like that. You need cooling, he said. I can fix your air system. It's overworking. She tried to protest, but he was already checking the panel near the door. The cooling vents had sealed automatically due to her energy output. He overrode the safety locks and increased the airflow, letting cold air sweep through the room. She shivered slightly as the temperature dropped. Better? He asked. She nodded faintly. You are kind, Ethan Cole, but this kindness can cost you. The Valari cycle touches minds. Humans feel what we feel, sometimes too deeply. I'll take that chance, he said with a small smile. You helped me once when my door broke. Call it even. Her lips curved in a weak smile. Humans always say things so simply, she whispered. He set the climate system to automatic balance, placed a few cooling packs nearby, and checked the energy cells. Before leaving, he turned and saw her watching him quietly. The light from her eyes was softer now, almost peaceful. Try to rest, he said. When he stepped out, she whispered something in her language, a soft, melodic sound that lingered like music in the air. He did not understand the meaning, but he felt warmth in his chest, something gentle that refused to fade. That night he could not sleep. The stars outside his window looked unusually bright, and his dreams were strange. He saw glowing forests, silver rivers, and heard the same melody she had spoken. When he woke up, his heartbeat was fast, and the air still carried her scent through the vents. He told himself it was imagination. But deep down, he knew something real had changed. The Valari woman's season was not just a personal cycle. It was a living force that touched everything near her. And as the suns of Varela rose again, Ethan realized this was only the beginning. The true consequence of what was happening next door had yet to unfold, and whatever it would not leave him the same. The next day began with a strange silence in the colony. Usually, the early hours were filled with the sound of machinery starting and people moving about. But that morning the air felt heavy, as if the planet itself was holding its breath. Ethan woke up early, still unsettled by the dreams that had haunted his night. He could still hear the soft melody that had come from Lyra's voice echoing in his head. It felt too real to be just a dream. When he checked his environmental monitor, he noticed that the oxygen levels in his room had shifted slightly. The readings showed increased traces of Valari bioparticles. It confused him at first, but then he realized they were coming through the air vents from Lyra's room. Whatever was happening to her was spreading beyond her walls. He decided to check on her again, not out of curiosity, but because his engineer's instincts told him something was wrong. When he knocked on her door, there was no answer. He tried again, and finally the door slid open slowly. The air that escaped carried that same floral scent, only thicker and warmer this time. Lyra was sitting near the window again, her breathing uneven, her eyes glowing faintly gold now instead of silver. Her skin shimmered as if light moved under it. She looked both fragile and powerful at the same time. Lyra, Ethan said quietly. I think the filters are spreading your air into my room too. It's changing the readings. She lifted her gaze slowly. I am sorry. I tried to stop it. But the energy waves from my body react with the vents. I cannot control it. You're making yourself worse, he said. If your temperature keeps rising, your organs could fail before the shuttle arrives. Her lips trembled faintly. It is not just temperature. The cycle affects the mind too. My emotions, they do not stay inside me anymore. They reach out. They connect. You might feel them, he blinked. You mean I can feel what you feel? She nodded slightly. If you stay near long enough. But it is not safe. You should leave for the upper dome. Wait until it ends. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. Leaving sounded easy, but something deep inside him refused to go. He remembered how lost she had looked the night before, how helpless she had sounded. He could not abandon someone suffering alone just because it was easier. I'm not going anywhere, he said firmly. I'll help you through it. Lyra stared at him surprised. Her eyes softened and her voice grew quieter. Humans, she whispered. Always trying to fix everything. He gave a faint smile. Maybe that's our curse. Ethan spent most of that day working on stabilizing her living unit. He rerouted extra power to the cooling system and replaced the air regulators to slow the spread of her biowaves. Each time he worked near her, he could feel a strange warmth in his chest, like his own heartbeat was echoing hers. The air shimmered faintly around her, as though invisible ripples were moving through space. At one point, as he bent down to adjust a vent, he suddenly felt a wave of emotion rush through him, a deep sadness mixed with fear. It wasn't his. He looked up and saw her sitting quietly, eyes closed, tears forming on her cheeks. He realized he was feeling her emotions. The connection was real. "You're scared," he said softly. She opened her eyes and looked at him. "I am trying not to be," she whispered. The last time a Valari went through this cycle near a human, he lost his mind. He could not separate her emotions from his own. Ethan stood up and shook his head. "That won't happen. I can handle it." But later, when he returned to his quarters, he wasn't so sure. The dreams came again. Visions of glowing fields, hands reaching for his, voices whispering his name. Every sound felt alive. When he touched the wall, he thought he could hear her heartbeat faintly through it. He didn't know if it was real or just in his head. By evening, the colony AI announced an incoming storm. Dust winds from the northern ridge were approaching, strong enough to cut off outside travel for 2 days. The shuttle that was supposed to pick up Lyra wouldn't make it through. Ethan realized they were both stuck there until the storm passed. When he told Lyra the news, she didn't look surprised. "I knew," she said quietly. "The storm pattern follows the old cycle. It always happens this time of year." Ethan looked out the window where red dust was beginning to rise in the distance. "So we waited out," he said. "I'll make sure the power stays up." "You just need to rest," Lyra smiled weakly. "Humans never understand rest. You always keep moving, fixing, helping." He shrugged. "It's how we survive." As the storm rolled in, the two of them worked together to seal the vents and reinforce the shield barriers. The wind outside howled like a living creature, and the night turned red under the swirling dust. Inside, the temperature stayed balanced, but the air felt alive with invisible energy. Lyra's glow grew stronger, and Ethan could feel waves of warmth pulsing through the walls. At one point, while checking a power conduit, he felt lightheaded. His vision blurred, and he had to steady himself against the wall. The moment he did, a flood of emotions rushed into him again. Loneliness, pain, and something like hope mixed together. He realized she was feeling it too. Her voice reached him faintly from the other side of the room. "Ethan," she said, "you are connected now. I cannot stop it. My body sees you as part of my bond field." "What does that mean?" he asked, his voice unsteady. "It means your thoughts and mine will mix. You will feel what I feel, until the cycle ends." He tried to think clearly, but the emotions were so strong they almost drowned his own. "How long does it last?" he asked. 3 nights, she whispered. "This is only the second." He sat down, breathing hard. The energy waves weren't hurting him, but they filled his mind with strange images. Lyra standing under alien skies, surrounded by glowing flowers, her eyes full of sorrow and beauty. He didn't know if these were her memories or just visions created by the connection. Hours passed like that. Outside, the storm screamed, shaking the walls. Inside, silence and warmth. Sometimes she spoke softly about her world, the Valari oceans that glowed at night, the floating gardens that bloomed during the cycle, and how her people once feared contact with humans. "You do not understand," she said quietly. "When Valari connect with others, it changes them. Our energy touches the soul. Some cannot bear it." Ethan looked at her and smiled faintly. "Maybe humans are stronger than you think." Lyra looked away, her expression unreadable. "Or maybe kinder," she said. Later, when she grew weaker, Ethan helped her lie down near the cooling field. Her skin shimmered like mist, and the room dimmed softly around her. He stayed nearby, watching the readings and adjusting the system to keep her stable. Sometime deep in the night, he heard her voice again, soft and tired. "Why do you stay, Ethan Cole?" He hesitated before answering. "Because someone should." She smiled faintly, her eyes closing. "In all my cycles, no one ever did." He didn't know what to say. The storm raged outside. The air pulsed with strange energy, and yet he felt calm sitting beside her. For the first time, he realized that her world, her people, and their emotions were not so different from his. They all wanted connection, understanding, and warmth. As dawn approached, the dust storm began to fade. Ethan looked out at the pale light touching the horizon. Lyra was still asleep, her breathing soft and peaceful. He checked her vitals once more and saw that her body temperature had started to lower. The worst part might be passing, but deep inside he could still feel the faint rhythm of her heartbeat inside his own mind, steady and quiet like an echo that refused to fade. He didn't know what that meant yet, but he knew this. Something had changed between them forever. The storm lasted longer than expected. Even after sunrise, thick red clouds still moved across the horizon, covering the colony in dim light. The outer domes were sealed for safety, and no ships could land until the sky cleared. Ethan spent the morning running checks on the power grid while keeping an eye on Lyra's health monitor through his portable scanner. Her body temperature had dropped slightly but was still above normal. He returned to her room with a tray of nutrient packs and warm water. She was awake, sitting near the window again. The color in her eyes had softened back to silver, though faint golden light still pulsed beneath her skin. She looked tired but calmer than before. When she saw him, she gave a small smile. "You are still here," she said softly. "Where else would I go?" Ethan replied. "The storm closed everything." "I can feel that," she said quietly. "The planet itself trembles when the dust rises. Valari hearts beat with the rhythm of their world. That's why my pulse changed again this morning." He sat across from her, watching the slow shimmer of her skin. "Your people are connected to the planet?" he asked. She nodded. "Every Valari is born with a resonance to our home world. But when we live on another planet, the energy becomes unstable. It's harder to control emotions during the cycle. That explains why your systems reacted strangely," he said. "They were syncing with your heartbeat." Lyra looked at him curiously. "You understand more than most humans," Ethan shrugged. "Maybe I just pay attention." For a while they sat in silence. The only sound came from the soft hum of the cooling vents and the faint roar of wind outside. The air felt calm again, but Ethan could still sense the faint connection between them. Whenever Lyra's emotions shifted, something inside him seemed to move too, a subtle echo in his chest. It wasn't unpleasant, only strange, like a whisper at the edge of his thoughts. After a few minutes, she spoke again. "When you helped me yesterday, you linked your energy field with mine. That bond cannot break until the cycle ends." "I kinda guessed," Ethan said with a faint smile. "I can feel when you're sad or calm." Her eyes widened a little. "You can?" "Yeah," he said quietly. "Last night I felt peaceful, like your heart slowed down. It helped me sleep." Lyra looked down at her hands. "That means your mind is adjusting. You are adapting faster than I thought." He leaned forward slightly. "Is that a good thing?" She hesitated before answering. "It means you might not suffer any mental damage. But it also means that when the final wave of the cycle comes, you will feel it completely." "What happens in the final wave?" Her eyes turned distant. "It's when all the energy that built inside me releases. It's pure emotion, every feeling I've carried for years. Joy, sorrow, pain, hope. It can overwhelm anyone nearby." Ethan nodded slowly. "Then we'll find a way to handle it. We've made it this far." She studied him for a moment, then smiled faintly. "Humans never fear the unknown. That's what makes your kind dangerous and beautiful." The day went on quietly. Ethan repaired the damaged antennas while keeping the environment stable. Sometimes Lyra helped by adjusting the settings on the console. Her hands moved gracefully over the controls, and her presence made the room feel alive. The connection between them grew stronger but also steadier, as if they were learning to share thoughts without words. That evening, as the storm began to fade, the suns appeared again through the red haze. The light filled the room with soft gold. Lyra stood by the window looking out at the horizon. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "When I was young, my mother told me that during a cycle, a Valari sees memories not just from her own life but from the lives of those around her. It's how we learn empathy. I think I've seen your memories too, Ethan." He turned toward her, surprised. "My memories?" She nodded slowly. "You fixing machines on Earth, the rain falling on metal rooftops, the smell of oil and smoke, a small apartment where you lived alone. You looked at the stars the same way you look at this sky." He felt a lump form in his throat. "I didn't show you that." "I know," she said softly. "It came through the bond." He laughed quietly, trying to hide his unease. "Then you probably know I wasn't planning to stay here this long. I signed up for a 1-year term." "Yes," she said, smiling faintly. "But something keeps you here." He looked out the window beside her. Maybe I was looking for quiet. Earth was too loud. Lyra turned her head slightly. Quiet can hide many hearts that need healing. They stood side by side, watching the fading storm. For a few moments, neither spoke. The colony lights flickered back online, and the world looked almost peaceful again. But then, without warning, the air pressure changed. The monitors on the wall began to flash. "What's happening?" Ethan said quickly. Lyra closed her eyes. "It's starting." The final wave. Her voice trembled as the golden light around her body grew brighter. The air thickened with invisible energy that vibrated through the walls. Ethan grabbed the console, trying to stabilize the power grid, but the readings spiked beyond normal range. Her bioenergy field was expanding rapidly, stronger than before. "Lyra, you need to focus," he said. "Control your breathing. You're pushing too much energy." She clutched her chest, gasping. "I can't stop it. It's instinct." He reached out and caught her before she fell. The moment his hands touched her, the room exploded in light. A rush of emotion swept through him so strong it almost knocked him off his feet. He felt everything. Her fear, her loneliness, her centuries of memories carried through her bloodline. The light around them flickered, showing glimpses of oceans, skies, and ancient temples of the Valari world. He couldn't tell where he ended and she began. Her voice echoed inside his mind. "Do you see now why I warned you?" He answered in his thoughts without speaking. "Yes. But I'm not afraid." The connection deepened until it felt like they shared the same heartbeat. He could feel her pulse, her pain, her longing for home. She saw his memories, too. The noise of human cities, the faces he had lost, the dreams he had buried. Two lives, two species, blending into one rhythm of feeling. Outside, the storm cleared completely. The light of both suns shone through the dome, scattering across the glowing air. Slowly, the energy began to settle. Lyra's breathing eased. The golden shimmer faded into a soft silver glow. Ethan opened his eyes, dizzy but calm. She was lying against his shoulder, her eyes half open, the light in them dimming to normal. "It's over," she whispered. "The cycle has ended." He helped her sit up gently. "You did it," he said, relief flooding his voice. She looked at him, her face peaceful. "No, we did it. You carried part of the storm with me." He smiled faintly. "Guess I'm tougher than I look." Her laughter was quiet but real this time. The sound filled the small room like sunlight. For the first time since the cycle began, she looked truly alive again. Later that night, after helping her eat and rest, Ethan sat outside near the dome's viewing deck. The stars of Varela stretched endlessly across the sky, bright and clear after the storm. His body still felt strange, light, almost electric. He could still sense a faint echo of her heartbeat somewhere deep inside him. He looked up at the stars and whispered, "What now?" From behind him a soft voice answered, "Now we start again." Lyra stood in the doorway wearing a long dark robe, her eyes silver and calm. "The bond will fade in time," she said, walking closer. "But traces of it will stay. You will always feel a little of what I feel, even across distance." He nodded slowly. "I think I can live with that," she smiled. "Then perhaps the cycle did not only change me." Ethan looked at her, then back at the glowing horizon. The universe suddenly felt smaller, as if two worlds had drawn a little closer together. Whatever had begun in that small building during the storm was more than a biological event. It was a meeting of hearts across stars, proof that understanding could exist between beings as different as human and Valari. As the night wind whispered softly across the dome, Ethan realized that he no longer felt alone. The connection might fade with time, but the memory of it would stay, like starlight long after the sun itself was gone. The next morning came with soft light filtering through the clouds. The storm had passed and Varela 3 looked calm again. The sand had settled, the air was clear and the colony systems were back online. Ethan stepped out of his room, still feeling the faint echo of warmth that lingered in his chest since last night. It was quiet, almost too quiet. The chaos of the past few days had left the air heavy with peace, the kind that felt earned after a long struggle. He walked to Lyra's door and pressed the chime. For a moment there was no answer. Then the door slid open, and she stood there looking healthier than he had ever seen her. Her skin had returned to its soft, pale shade of green, her eyes bright silver again and her movements steady. She wore a simple tunic, her hair tied back. She smiled gently. "You look human again," she teased softly. "And you look alive again." he said with a small grin. She stepped aside to let him in. The room no longer glowed with strange lights. The air smelled fresh, the temperature balanced. All traces of her blooming cycle were gone. It felt like a new beginning. "The medical shuttle is arriving today," she said quietly. "They will check my vitals and make sure the cycle ended safely." He nodded. "That's good. You deserve rest after everything." Lyra tilted her head slightly. "You sound like someone who has not rested either." He laughed softly. "You could say that." He sat down near the console while she adjusted her wrist device. "Do you remember everything that happened?" Her eyes softened. "I remember everything. Every word, every moment, every emotion. The connection we shared doesn't vanish. It becomes a memory that lives inside both of us." He looked down at his hands. "I still feel it sometimes," he admitted. "Like your heartbeat is still echoing in my chest." "It will fade slowly," she said. "But a part of it will remain. That is the nature of the bond." They sat quietly for a while, letting the hum of the machines fill the silence. Outside, the colony's speaker system crackled to life, announcing that the shuttle had entered orbit. It would land near the south platform in less than an hour. Lyra turned to him. "When I arrived on this world, I thought humans were careless. I thought you only took what you needed from other planets and left nothing but metal behind. But now I see there is more to you. You care even when there is no reason to. You help without asking. You endure pain just to keep someone else from suffering." Ethan looked up, meeting her gaze. "Maybe that's what makes us human," he said simply. "We don't quit on people." Her lips curved into a small smile. "Then maybe that is what makes you different from us. We are bound by instinct. You are bound by choice." There was a gentle silence between them after that, comfortable and warm. Then the sound of engines echoed faintly through the air. The shuttle had arrived. Lyra stood up and walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back to him. "You should come with me. They will want to ask questions about the link." He followed her through the corridor as the shuttle landed outside. A group of Valari medics stepped out, their suits gleaming silver under the twin suns. They scanned Lyra immediately and spoke in their melodic native tongue. After a few moments, one of them approached Ethan with a small scanner. "You were exposed to the cycle?" the medic asked. Ethan nodded. "I stayed with her through the storm." The medic looked surprised. "You survived the bond field without mental disruption?" "I think so," he said. "I feel fine." The medic exchanged a look with the others. "Interesting. Very few humans can adapt to Valari resonance. It changes neural frequency temporarily. You may experience increased empathy, sharper senses, or shared dreams for a while, but it will pass." Ethan smiled faintly. "I think I can handle that." The medic bowed politely and turned back to Lyra. They began to lead her toward the shuttle. For a moment, Ethan thought that was it, that she would leave, and the strange chapter between them would end quietly. But as she reached the ramp, she turned back once more. Her eyes found his across the dusty ground. "You changed the pattern of the bond," she said softly. For the first time, a human and Valari cycle ended without collapse. "Our scientists will study it, but I already know why it worked." "Why?" he asked. "Because you didn't see me as something alien," she said. "You saw me as someone worth helping." He didn't know how to respond, so he just nodded. She gave him one last smile before stepping into the shuttle. The doors closed and the craft lifted off slowly, its engines glowing blue against the sky. The colony felt different after she left. Quieter, emptier somehow. Ethan went back to his work, fixing circuits and maintaining the systems. Days passed, then weeks. Life returned to normal. Yet sometimes, when the night winds blew across the plains, he thought he could still hear her voice faintly in the air. One evening, as he was finishing repairs on a damaged power unit, the colony AI notified him of a message. It was from the Valari Council. The message carried Lyra's signature. He opened it immediately. "Ethan Cole," the message began. "I am safe and well. The scientists confirmed that the bond stabilized both of us. They call it cross-resonance balance. They say it may lead to new understanding between our species. I am grateful you were there. The universe feels smaller now, closer, kinder. I hope our paths meet again." Ethan read the message twice, smiling quietly. He saved it and looked out the window at the wide desert plains. The stars above were the same, but they no longer felt distant. Somewhere out there, among those stars, Lyra was alive and thinking of the same sky. Months passed. The colony grew larger as more settlers arrived. New domes were built and new machines filled the quiet plains with life. Ethan became chief engineer, known for his calm nature and his ability to work with both humans and Valari. People said he had an unusual sense of empathy, almost as if he could feel what others needed before they spoke. He never corrected them. He knew where that gift came from. One night, as he stood on the outer deck watching the stars, the comm system beeped again. A transport ship was requesting landing clearance. Its identification code began with the same prefix as the Valari research fleet. He felt his heart skip. The ship landed quietly, and when the airlock opened, a familiar voice called his name. Lyra stepped out, her eyes bright under the lights. She was dressed in a travel uniform, carrying a small case. "I told them I needed to return to Varela for research," she said with a playful tone. But maybe it was more than research. Ethan stared at her, stunned but smiling. "You came back?" "I did," she said simply. "Our scientists want to study long-term bond effects. They asked me to stay near the human who survived it." He laughed softly. "So I'm part of a science project now?" She stepped closer, her expression gentle. "No, you are part of something that changed both our worlds." For a moment, they just looked at each other. The desert wind brushed past, carrying the soft hum of the colony generators. The silence between them felt full of meaning, peaceful, real, and familiar. She lifted her gaze toward the stars. "My people used to believe that our energy only connected us to our own kind," she said quietly. "Now I know it can cross worlds." Ethan followed her gaze. "Maybe that's what the universe wanted us to learn." They stood together under the twin suns as dawn broke across the sky, painting the world in gold and blue. The horizon stretched endlessly, but for the first time it didn't feel lonely. The past cycle had begun with fear and confusion, but it ended with understanding. The human and the Valari had shared more than a moment. They had shared proof that connection could exist between hearts, no matter how different their worlds were. As the light spread over the desert plains, Lyra looked at him and smiled. "The next cycle will come again in 7 years," she said softly. He smiled back. "Then I guess I should stay around for it." She laughed, and the sound was warm, carried by the wind like a promise. The suns rose higher, shining on them both, two beings from different stars, standing side by side, bound not by instinct or science, but by choice. And in that light, Ethan finally understood what the Valari meant when they spoke of resonance. It wasn't just energy. It was the rhythm of life itself, the beat that connected one heart to another, across galaxies, across differences, across time.